So let me cover how to troubleshoot a bogging down small engine, in this case a blower. I had a problem with this where it would run for 10 or 15 minutes. Once it got hot, it would start bogging down and it would just eventually just stop and wouldn't run until it cooled off again. So I did a bunch of troubleshooting. I think I solved the problem. It's running pretty good now, but let me cover what I did to get this running right. One of the first things you want to check is your fuel system. You'll find that these caps can't get clogged and don't allow air to feed into the system. There's a check valve inside of this. Let's see if we can get a close-up of this. And the check valve is right inside here, and what it does is it'll allow air into the system and depressurize, if you will. If that gets clogged or doesn't work, that's one of the things that'll happen, is that it'll bog down. Eventually it'll run out of gas. What I did was I put a air hose against this and I just blew it out, make sure that the little diaphragm opened and closed. The next thing I want to show you is going to be the fuel system itself. One of the things that you can do, it's readily available, is replace the fuel lines. This particular system has two. There's a fuel line that feeds the system. Inside the gas tank there is a fuel filter which could be clogged. There is a bulb which lets you pump fresh gas into the carburetor, which is behind this plate here. The way these systems work is it'll pump gas into the carburetor. Once there's sufficient gas in the carburetor, any excess will flow back through this hose into the gas tank. One of the things that I found is that this hose had some kinks in it. That will cause enough back pressure to cause the system to bog down once it gets warm. It's my understanding, at least. The other thing that you can do, aside from replacing, clearing out the gas cap, replacing your hoses, replacing the fuel bulb, because there is a check valve in here as well, is rebuild the carburetor. This particular unit I had to rebuild. If you're lucky enough, you'll find replacement carburetors on eBay for about 10 bucks. Unfortunately, this one is out of manufacturer, so I had to get a rebuild kit and did that. I have another video which I'll direct you to that shows you how to rebuild these. And so that's one of the key areas in the fuel system that will cause a small gas engine to bog down, a two-cycle gas engine to bog down when it's warm. The other area you want to look at is actually the exhaust. So I'm going to take this apart. So the exhaust can actually cause these systems to bog down as well. And what happens is that the exhaust is not only a muffler, but it's a spark arrestor as well. The spark arrestor can get, I guess, contaminated, you could say, or full of debris, exhaust debris, whatever you want to call it, and create enough back pressure that the engine's not going to want to run. Typically when it's hot, but that probably could happen anytime. I'm just taking this cover off so I can get to the spark arrestor slash muffler. So your muffler, spark arrestor, it's got fibers inside of it, and see if we can get a close-up on that. Kind of hard to see, but right in here there's a fibrous mass. That can get clogged up with exhaust debris, oil, God knows what else comes out of that thing. So you want to clean it. What I ended up doing was I took a bucket, filled it up with hot water, ammonia, and dish detergent, Dawn specifically, and the idea was to let it soak overnight and work loose any grease that might be in there. So I'm going to put this back on, and then I'm going to cover one last area that you might want to look at. Yeah, by the way, this is a heat shield that I'm putting on here. I guess you really need it to keep the rest of the unit from melting, because these things do get really hot. I'm going to cover one last area that you want to look at. It's unlikely that this would be a problem, but it's always a possibility that could cause overheating. So let me put this on here and I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about. These are air-cooled engines and the cooling fins. There's always a possibility there could be some debris in the cooling fins, whether it's leaf, dirt, whatever it might be, that would keep the cylinder head from cooling off correctly. Some of these units actually have some air that blows from the blower section through the fins, so you want to check those. The more expensive units have filters that can get clogged up and should be maintained periodically, and that will also cause that problem. So there you go. I've covered the major points that will cause these engines to bog down and not run correctly. Yeah, again, a lot of it has to do with the fuel system. Clogged return line, a clogged intake. It could be any number of things. If it's more than a couple of 3-4 years old, probably pays to rebuild the carburetor anyway, or replace it if you can get a cheap one. Exhaust, cooling, those are really the key areas. I went through all of those on this, even though it was bogging down. Unfortunately, I don't have any video of it bogging down, but here's some video of it running afterwards, and it ran for 20-30 minutes without any problems at all. I hope you've enjoyed this video and gotten something out of it. If you have, hit like. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell button. And I'll see you again on the next go around.